The most common question I have received in the comments of my videos recently has been, goodness, what the hell happened to your teeth? And the second most common one has been, how do I become a freelance translator? Yay! So, if you want to be able to wake up whenever you want and roll out of bed, and then in whatever state you find yourself, you know, if you're hungover or if you're in a stranger's bedroom maybe, that's when you want to whip out the laptop and start translating. Or if you want to work however many hours you like, wherever you like, and if you don't want a manager ever telling you what to do ever again, then if you watch this video to the end, you will essentially have become a freelance translator. That's right. If you follow these 6 very easy steps, you will freelance like it's 1999. But hold on, I hear you say, who the f am I to tell you what to do in this way? My goodness. First off, back off. And second, I have not worked a sort of regular job since 2017. That was the last time I had a full-time job and decided that essentially 40-hour per week work was not really my dream. You know, I think when you wake up in the morning and you feel a bit sick and you have an excuse not to go to work, if that makes you pump your fist in the air with excitement, maybe that's a sign to sort of, it's time to switch careers, you know. And since 2017, freelance translating has been my main source of income, because goodness knows my YouTube channel is not nearly successful enough to, you know, for me to earn a living. Now, the gist of translating is to transform one language into another. We start with the basics. So first off, you need to learn that first language really well. First language acquisition is not too tricky for most people. If you find yourself struggling at this point already, then perhaps translation is not really the industry for you. Or you might be way too young to start considering career options, you know. However, being able to simply speak a language fluently is not enough to be a translator. People seem to think that, but it's just not true. I've even heard someone say that they can translate into Danish just because they speak fluent Swedish. Ha! Det går ju inte. It's a little bit like saying that you can become a firefighter just because you happen to be fluent in Swedish, you know. That's because you need to learn your native language very well. What the fuck? I don't know, it just came out like that. There it is. Okay. Do you know, for instance, how to use punctuation properly in your language? Do you know the difference between an N and an M dash? Have you mastered the use of the non-breakable space? And perhaps most importantly, when you see a semicolon, does that give you a bit of a semi? If yes, move on to step 2. Now, if your native language already is English, you are basically fucked, or at least you'll have a lot more of a grind in front of you. This is because of 2 reasons. So first one, most translation work available to you will be either to or from English. So everyone needs to know English. And second of all, most people who grow up in a language that isn't English kind of get English automatically by just hanging out on the internet, for instance, playing games, watching YouTube videos, stuff like that. So if you grow up learning English as your first language, you won't get your second language necessarily as easily or as automatically, which is a bummer. That said, even if you do speak one language fluently and a bit of English as well, you need to also make sure that your English is at least pretty good. It does not have to be as good as your native language, because that's the one that you will most likely translate into. That is your target language. Yeah, some fucking translation lingo. There you go. And your target language is always going to be the tricky one when translating, because understanding the source can be quite easy, but then turning that source into a well-written and well-flowing target is definitely the tricky part. Step 3 is to get some kind of degree or document that says that you do not in fact suck ass at languages. This is an optional step, I should say. I know many people who are translators who do not have a degree or any sort of official documentation at all. They do, you know, pass step 1 and 2 though very easily. They're very good at 2 languages, so that's obviously the most important bit. But having a paper that says that you are can help, for sure. I, for instance, have a degree in English literature, which is not ideal. Linguistics would definitely have been way better, but I didn't think when I decided on what to study, so there we are. I also know that there are language tests you can take to use as sort of certification. I think Cambridge University does one for English, and then there's the JLPT for Japanese, and so on. I've never done one of these. For whatever reason, people just trust me. So again, this step is optional. If you can prove yourself that you are good enough in hiring, which we will come to later, my goodness, you will be fine. Step 4 is to get your CV ready, highlighting anything that you think would catch the eye of a translation agency. It's perhaps a good idea to put your internship at the local newspaper above your side gig as a furry illustrator, you know. And then embrace your inner spam bot and spread that CV as if it was venereal. Google translation agency and then your 2 languages and just, I don't know, apply everywhere. Translation agencies usually work with many different companies and are definitely the best way for you to get reliable and consistent work. The first thing an agency will do when they first contact you is to send you a translation test. It's usually a shorter text or samples of different shorter strings from different fields like marketing or UI, and if you pass, congratulations, you have been added to the pool of available translators for that agency. If you don't, you should send them a groveling email describing just how sad this has made you feel, explain that you think they've made a mistake and that their lame ass test sucked anyway. There are also websites like ProZ, where you can sometimes get contacted for work. Most of the time this will be a bit less reliable and perhaps the pay will be a bit worse. But I'd say that ProZ is a very good start, especially if you don't have any previous writing or translation experience. This is a good way to get some, to flesh out the CV, you know. ProZ is like the starter area in an RPG where you will learn a bunch of stuff, but you won't necessarily find any juicy gear. That's right. Great analogy. Okay. Starting off as a freelancer definitely takes some time in the beginning. You need to build up like a relationship with the agencies before they start sending you regular work, obviously. Back when I first started freelancing in 2017, I had to move back with my brother, which of course I didn't mind at all. Getting home-baked cookies on a regular basis was a nice, lovely, you know. And that was even after I had a couple of years of professional translation experience working for different companies. So you should probably expect that you won't earn enough money to make what you used to the first couple of months at least, maybe even the first year or so. It will definitely go up and down. There will be periods when you feel like you're kind of swamped with available work, and there will be weeks when nothing pops up at all and you will panic because that's kind of part of the process, I think. But it always comes around, and like as soon as you get one job after a long dry spell, it feels like you don't have to worry, kind of. At least that's how I work. I don't know. So don't feel discouraged. It always comes back, you know. But yeah, just keep in mind that you will definitely not get enough work straight off the bat. You might need to move back in with your parents, dig into your savings a bit, or start putting feet pics up on OnlyFans. And then once you have grinded for long enough, you will eventually reach a sort of cruising altitude where you can say yes or no to any project because you know that you will get offered more in the future. That's a wonderful feeling when you say no to something just because you know that you're set for the month anyway, you know. It feels a little bit like you've beaten the job market, kind of. If you decline work enough times, of course you might become poor as fuck, but that is at least based on only your bad decisions, you know, and doesn't affect anyone else. And at least I definitely prefer that. That's like the biggest perk for me, not having to feel bad when I don't work, because the only one I'm hurting is myself. And I don't care about myself. I need a therapist, for sure. So conclusions, there we go. Ja jävlar. After following these steps, you will eventually become a freelance translator. It might take a long time depending on your, you know, experience and your grit and determination and stuff, but it will definitely happen as long as you just keep it up, you know. Also, I should say, if you are prone to enjoy working with, like, keeping track of invoices and spreadsheets and that administrative part of freelancing, you will have an edge for sure. It helps being a freelancer if you are a bit boring. There are a couple of things that I haven't mentioned in this video, like CAT tools and registering to pay taxes and stuff. CAT tools they're the translation software that companies want you to use to translate. They're very easy to learn. You can probably learn them in like half an hour, and most of them have very similar layouts. Many of them are even browser based these days, so you don't even have to download anything to your computer. You can just use your browser. And I mean, it goes without saying that you need to register as a small company in whatever country you are in to pay taxes and stuff on your income. Yay, but there we go. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you very much for watching, especially to my Patreons as always, for helping me sometime perhaps clawing my way out of translation and being able to do what I actually enjoy, which is YouTube full time. Anyway, oh, and there is a step 7, by the way. You need to wake up in the middle of the night worrying that AI will eventually take over the entire industry.